Okay, we will now make a start. I'm Elaine Trahan. I'm the director of the Centre for Spatial and Textual Analysis, which is one of the digital humanities research hubs on campus. We own 3/4 of the floor and do lots of different kinds of digital humanities projects up here. We have 29 faculty projects at the moment, and during the course of the year, 100 undergraduate research interns, probably 20 graduates, and about maybe a dozen postdoctoral fellows at any given point. We house the Stanford Data Science Institute scholars. And it's a wonderful, dynamic and vibrant space, and therefore absolutely perfect for the wonderful and dynamic talk that we're gonna have from Wang as part of our Tuesday Digital Humanities seminar series, which runs, I think, for another 2 weeks, Brian, is that right? Yeah. So welcome to the centre. You know what things are like at Stanford. People come in and out, you pay no attention to that, focus on what Ger is going to be doing at the front of the room. He's an associate professor at Stanford University Centre for Computer Research in Music and Acoustics, which is, how do you say the acronym?
CCRMA.
Oh, CCRMA. CCRMA. Okay. He researches artful design of tools, toys, games, and social experiences, and he's the architect of the Chuck music programming language, director of the Stanford Laptop Orchestra, co-founder of Smool, and designer of the Ocarina and Magic Piano apps. For mobile phones, I have Ocarina on my phone. It really works. Magic, witchcraft. He's a 2016 very prestigious Guggenheim Fellow, and he is the author of this extraordinary book. This is CESTA's copy, so I'm going to pass this round for you to look at. I'm sure, have most of you seen this in some or other? It's just extraordinary, and of course, therefore, a massive shout out to Stanford University Press, who produced this with really incredibly intense work by Ger as well at the press. We value them tremendously, and just the work that they do is fabulous. The authors that they publish are fabulous. We're about to find that out. This quarter, Ger is teaching a new critical thinking course at Stanford, Think 66, Design That Understands Us. And so it's Ger represents interdisciplinarity in action. The way that disciplines come together to produce something really new and vibrant and innovative in the best sense of that word. I've seen him talk about his book. It's been a privilege to watch the great reception that Ger has had, and so we're very grateful to have him with us today. So let's welcome Ger to Stanford's CESTA series. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Elaine, and thanks to all of you for having me. I'm going to jump right in, and yeah, that's me in my office at Karma, and this is my 12th years here at Stanford. I still feel completely new and bewildered by things. And yes, I make things, I build things, I design things with really software and some hardware. Instruments, tools, toys, games, social things. And and code is kind of my natural, that's my craft as much as anything else. So yeah, as my PhD advisor once said, yeah, good turns like food and code as input, and output comes computer music and software. So I'm kind of a transform of that kind. And this is the Stanford Laptop Orchestra, and I make all things like apps, right? So, but I want to take you back like a little bit further back in time, and to give you like kind of really like where I come from. I was born in Beijing, and I grew up right there. And in the second floor of this building, I grew up with my grandparents. That's me at age 4. They were both teachers. Grandma taught math in high school. Grandpa taught, it was a journalist turned engineer, and taught at Beijing's Aeronautical University. My parents were at that time working in other parts of the country. This is right after the Cultural Revolution had ended. My mom's dad worked like a decade in a car factory in Shanxi. And so Beijing has gotten a lot more polluted and congested since, the town I grew up at. Home is home. And it still has its moments. I was just there 3 weeks ago to celebrate my grandmother's 100th birthday. This is actually taken on her birthday. She was born in 1919 in Beijing, so she's seen a lot. And I've been interviewing her since last summer about her life story so far. And
what's her secret?
I think she does qigong, but I think she keeps kind of a good heart and a steadiness about her. Yeah, I'm trying to figure that out too. Trying to do, and the book I might be writing on her, I don't know if that's going to happen. Now, I think I'm kind of what you call disciplinarily confused in that I did an undergrad in computer science, grad school in computer science. My home appointment is in music, but I think design, whatever that is kind of that's really the one thing that sort of ties what I do together. And as a designer, I've been thinking, like, what is the first thing I really intentionally built, designed? I think it was a brick. I was like age 6. And tried to make it out of mud I found downstairs in the building. And what was the purpose of this? Right? As far as I can remember, I was trying to make gold bars in my room. I would take this mud, I would shape them very carefully and wrap them in old newspaper and put them under the bed to dry for weeks. And I would take them out in kind of a blunt alchemistic attempt to literally make money. And then try to pawn this off on my friends in exchange for candy and other things. This did not work. But I think this is we're a kid, and but I would like to offer that all kids are weird. If you think about it, kids do things that make no sense to their future adult selves, and that is what makes childhood so wonderful and uninhibited. Kids are beholden to no one, and therefore are free to be themselves. And I think as we all grow up, we all struggle to keep that part of us, within us. So, and I'm telling you this because I think this very much has to do with everything I'm going to talk about. It's kind of like keeping that, but really actualizing that in the work that we do as adults. And yes, we are fashioned by the things we love. I grew up on video games, and actually, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. I grew up watching people play video games in the arcade, and I was mesmerized by the bright pixels on the screen that were moving. And I still, to this day, I just look at pixels like sprites, and I'm entranced. And I was up till like 3 a.m. last night playing StarCraft. I still play. I've been playing StarCraft for 20 years. And I think video games also have informed the way I think about making things. I came to the U.S. when I was 9, and my parents, for my 13th birthday, got me an electric guitar. That was an acoustic one of the business. But that was kind of what I didn't ask for it. I was like, well, thinking back, I'm like, wow, why did they choose to arm their child with like an instrument of rebellion at like the worst age possible, right? Maybe there's like drum set could have been worse, I guess, right? Or maybe like by sanctioning, rebellion preemptively, you're taking the fun out of it. And I was a really good kid, and I played my guitar, I studied, and made music out with my friends, played a lot of backyard football. I didn't have a lot of friends, but I had a few very good friends. And I think that's kind of how I really tend to exist in the world in that way. I went to college, and I studied computer science because it was fun. It was a fun thing to do. It was like the software version of mud that you can shape into bricks, right? And I have to tell you something that, in 2004, when I was a grad student at Princeton in computer science, there was literally a moment when I was like, oh my God, CS enrollment across the board is like declining. I'm telling this is a true story. I look back between the 2000 bubble and like 2007, 2008, there's a moment when computer science enrollment was just going down. And I was like, I hope this doesn't go away. If you like cultural anthropology or German studies, this is something that's worthwhile. We may not be like a huge department, but it is a pursuit that's worth keeping. So anyway, that's a mere 15 years ago. And computer science for me is, well, it is my craft, but it's also kind of, it's also a philosophy, right? I mean, there's some practical philosophy from here. In software, as in life, Professor Ashkin would say, there are two good answers to just about any question. I don't know, it depends. Right? This actually is a great way to approach software design because everything is extremely situational. You got to know the trade-offs, and you got to really tailor it to your decision to kind of the situation at hand. But also the day that I learned that, wow, there are things that computers provably cannot solve. That was a beautiful moment. That was a sublime moment for me. That was actually the end of the first semester at Duke, when Professor Ashkin's like, today we're not going to talk about data structures or algorithms. We're going to talk about what computers cannot do, right? And later I would learn that this is process theorem, or this is, and you can look at the halting problem. You know, computers can. There's some things computers, as we know them, cannot do, and that was beautiful. To know a thing, I think, is to know its limits. And so, anyway, computer science for me, I think, from that day was as much of a technical, but as was a philosophical pursuit. I went to grad school in computer music. This is Perry Cook, and he really taught me everything I knew about synthesizing sounds, making instruments out of computers, and making music with these instruments that we build. And for my dissertation, which I'm still working on this is Chuck. As Lane mentioned, this is a programming language for generating sound. I'm going to give you a quick demo of this. So, let's see, how many people in this room write code? Good amount of you. Do not worry if you do not write code. So I'm going to say, here's a sign-off foo, and I chuck that to DAC. And that's the chuck operator. I'm connecting to the output here. I'm going to say the frequency of foo is 140, and I'm going to let time advance for 2 seconds. So that looks like a chuck. I'm actually going to make it a little not so loud. Okay, if I do this, we hear a sine wave, 40 hertz, 2 seconds, right? And I can copy and paste this. Actually, it's a little smaller so you can see it. Half the frequency here, double it here, and 5, 0.5, and 1. What's going to happen to the pitch? Well, it's going to go into successive lines. Now I'm going to put this whole thing in an infinite loop, which I've written like probably as many infinite loops as pretty much anyone. I think for Chuck, you just write a lot of infinite loops. And this thing's just going to keep on. I have automation. Let's then take this and say math.random2f generate random number between 30 and 1,000. Set that as first frequency every 1 second, every half a second, every 200 milliseconds. 100 milliseconds. I can pause here and note that we've created future music. This is the sound that many computers decide by users are thinking really hard. 10 milliseconds. 1 millisecond. It's fine wave, but we've crossed a very notable perceptual threshold where we stop perceiving individual bleeps and boops and start perceiving a continuing carpet of sound, right? That happened right around 20 to 30 hertz, one of the few places where kind of our auditory system lines up perceptually with our kind of visual systems. Otherwise, in general, like audio and video, actually, they're their own beast. This is one place where they actually line up perceptually. And you can go up, you can see like 1 second, be like a minute, hour, day, week. We stop with week, you know, not all months are the same length. This is the 50 week is my estimation of what a year is, and every 1,000 years. So, millennium from now, there will be a new random frequency. So we're not going to wait for that, and so that's Chuck. It's open source, it's freely available. I like to say Crash is equally long all commodity operating systems, so give it a try. And that kind of brings us more or less back to kind of the present. And I started a company also in 2008. That was Spatial, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. 3 years ago, I started writing Artful Design for a number of reasons. And but this book would not happen without Stanford University Press. It's Alan, director, that's Kate, the editor-in-chief. She was also my editor. And this would depict kind of a normal meeting between Kate and I, where there's a manuscript with some coffee nut M&Ms and me trying to pitch some really awful idea that Kate's trying to talk me down from. And I think it is the author's job to kind of make the journey, but it is the editor that really guides him around every twist and turn. And so there's a lot more I could, and some I will say about this, but this, it's a comic book. And for Kate and Alan to kind of champion this project was something that's still just remains like dumbfounding and extraordinary to me. And so began really this adventure of writing this book, which started as a computer music book. Like, how do we design computer music beats? But then quickly was realizing, that the way that I'm thinking about computer music instrument tools design is really broadly kind of how maybe design just works. So what this became was a meditation on design as a humanistic, artistic, and social act of engineering. Right? That's what this became. In the medium, the format, also just quickly spiraled out of control. I was like, hey, Kate, I got a lot of photos, and maybe we just have a lot of figures, and they could be in color. And then I was like, I grew up with a lot of comic books. Maybe like some of the pages could be like in comic book form, so that when I talk about something like an instrument or an act or some object design, that thing could talk back. We could like have a conversation. That's something that the medium of comic books could afford us. And very quickly after that, I was like, what if the entire thing was a comic book? And the message that got in me. And so, yeah, it's a book on design. So this became a 488-page photo comic book, and where every page is different from every other page, but also kind of in this format. And 3 key questions this book, I think, tries to pose and tries in its way to answer are: 1, what is the nature of design? What does it mean to design well? It's a qualitative, kind of a question here. And also, what does it mean to design ethically? And what does that have to do with artful design? What makes design artful at the end of the day? And those became kind of this. So in a way, this is kind of a hidden ethics book on design and technology. So I'm going to go a little bit into each one of these and give you a sense of that. One, I will say design is not a specialized thing. It can be, but I think design, I'm thinking of this as something that we all do. Anytime we intentionally shape the world with a specific purpose in mind, we are, by definition, designing, at least by my definition, right? So this is my first demo in my design classes, and it does not have computers in it, but it does have technology, and there's a technology, well, you'll see what the technology is. First, my pencil bag. Got this at Walmart 6 years ago, looking for a pencil bag. That's its function, its purpose, right? And you can see that already. It's unlike most other pencil bags that it has eyes. When you unzip it, for teeth. You can't unsee the face. This is anthropomorphism working in design. We're hardwired to see faces. Wait, there's more. You can take the zipper. You can keep going. Until you realize the whole thing is one single zipper. And I think our brain at that point is like, what the hell? Why? What is the purpose of this? Right? And actually, anyone care to offer an answer?
Delight.
Delight. My favorite answer is that this thing has no practical purpose other than to just be what it is, because it's awesome.
You want to choke someone, don't let it school.
That's an important second now too. It could be like a
I don't like you.
ad hoc rope / murder weapon. Could be a belt. It's probably easier to clean this way. Whoever made this, whoever designed this, I don't know who designed this, maybe we're looking at like a giant warehouse full of surplus slippers and like, what do we do with all this? But I think the answer that, unlike this in pencil bag form, which has a very clear purpose, just to contain pencils and also control access to its contents. That's a very clear purpose. This maybe has no purpose as such, right? This is an end in itself. And that's, I think that is the duality of design. I mean, that's, on one hand, there is function in terms of purpose. And then there's, what is form? Well, I think in the broadest sense, form is just how something exists in the world. And this is how this pencil bag has chosen to exist in the world. There's something very interesting about that. And I would say this is probably the one single moment of sublimity I've ever had inside of Walmart. I realized that a pencil bag is its own zipper, and zipper becomes a pencil bag. And I was just like, people were passing by, I was like, hey, have you seen this? This is awesome. And it was a moment of clarity. So what is design? Well, in Artful Design, I say design is an act of alignment. We design to bring the world into pragmatic alignment with what we consider to be useful into aesthetic alignment. Our notion of what is good, what's beautiful, but the way things ought to be, a way to exist in the world. That's form. And within this creative endeavor, which expresses the options, express that you speak to our human dimension. That's part of the manifesto, and the book is a manifesto. It's trying to put this stake in the ground and saying this is another way with which we could think about how we shape technology. So this is something I designed. This is Ocarina.
Patrick, hi.
And Ocarina is an app for your phone. I designed this in 2008 with Mule. You play by blowing to the microphone, which is the bottom of the phone. You control pitch with multi-touch. Accelerometers are mapped to vibrato. So, right. And so this is it's a toy. It's kind of a little instrument, and you can do little ditties with this. And so that's the first part of Ocarina. And there's a game mode to Ocarina as well. Again, form, a way to exist in the world. I specifically did not put any shells or casing on Ocarina, just the functional parts of it. And they all respond to the gestures. And the statement, the attempt is to say, your phone is not emulating. There's not an ocarina sitting inside your phone. Your phone is the thing. That's the form. That is the way it exists. And the quadruplet of circles kind of going down the middle are actually hinting as to how you play the next notes. This is like Ocarina Hero, right? The difference being the sound is not produced. It's actually, there's a Chuck script running inside here that's generating the sound that your gestures and input are mapped to. And so every time you play this, it's a little different. No two playing of anything is ever quite the same. And yeah, it's something you get better at playing. There's another dimension to Ocarina, and that is a social dimension. In Ocarina, you can listen to other people belong to their phones around the world. This is Oceania coming from East Coast, from Anonymous. Who are these people? I don't know. The app is not designed to tell you. In fact, the app was designed to not tell you. Because I think it's better in this case. Zelda from Indonesia. This is a kind of social network, but a kind of an anonymous music-based social network. This is, and the anonymity is a very key part of the design of in terms of social design. That, and well, John Stuart Mill once wrote, "Eloquence is heard, but poetry is overheard." Like, this is designed to feel like you're over it. It's a kind of a voyeuristic kind of an act here. But you're listening on strangers blowing to their phone to make music. And if you hear, I don't know, Final Countdown coming from Korea, it makes you wonder, who is that? Is there like a traveler US there, or is this just a popular tune in Korea? And you're never going to get like a definitive answer to that, because there's none to be had from this app. But I think I would say in that case, wondering is better than knowing, okay, there's someone whose name I've never heard of, and they're their hobbies, and this is their profile. No, this is doing away with all of that and saying this is music and this is another person, not unlike yourself, who's blown to their phone to make music. Now that's kind of the idea behind Ocarina design as a social experience. And if there's underlying philosophy to this, it might be another one to say it's this: that technology could create calm. In this case, or should create calm. Mark Weiser, he's the late CTO of Xerox PARC, just up the street from here. And he's often regarded as kind of the forerunner of ubiquitous pervasive computing. It's the idea that computers would be in our world everywhere, kind of operating under kind of our consciousness, helping us. I think the first part is more or less true. Computers pretty much everywhere. I think they're anything but kind of under our consciousness. So, but this is a remarkable statement. This isn't saying technology is going to solve all our problems, people. This is an aesthetic ideal. It's saying technology could create calm. And this is an active thing to create. It's to bring about something that was not previously there. And this is a vision for what technology could do, maybe at its best. Right? So this, and this is a review left for Ocarina in 2009 on iTunes. This is my piece on Earth. I'm currently deployed in Iraq, and hell on Earth is an everyday occurrence. The few nights in my head off, I'm deeply engaged in this app. The globe feature that lets you hear everybody else in the world plays the most calming art I've ever been introduced to. It brings the entire world together without politics or war. It is the exact opposite of my life. So when I designed Ocarina, it was just like, this seems like a fun thing to do. And yes, it was designed as a product, and so in my mind, I was like, this thing ideally would smell like hotcakes. Like, absolutely, that was in my mind. There's also a space that I carved out and said, this is a place where none of these other things can touch. That's hopefully something you call the intrinsic value thing. A thing's gotta, to me, anything that's designed's gotta have that intrinsic value. But this kind of blew us away in that, it was supposed to be fun, like the pencil bag. But for Ocarina to provide even just a momentary sense of, a moment of peace for someone in a horrifying, horrific situation, that's something. This Ocarina was not going to pluck the soldier out of whatever hell they were in. But, well, that's what art does. Art doesn't pluck you away from your situation. It helps you transcend it, if only for a moment, right? And in Artful Design, this is kind of getting at kind of this question: what does it mean for design to be artful? Let's continue. So I think what I'm getting at here is that, I think good design enables us, and this is how we think of design and technology. But can we strive for more? Well, I would say great design strives for a kind of understanding of us, of who we are. And like great art, what in the world what is great art? How do you define great art, great music? Well, I can't give you an answer. I mean, I don't think I give the answer that everyone would agree with, and it's not really necessarily productive to do that. But I maybe can offer that great art isn't when you understood something about how great the art is, but rather when you feel like the art is understood in you. Think about your favorite song or like your favorite movie, right? Like, it probably be different for everybody, but these are things that makes you feel like, yeah, this song gets me, or who I am, or who I was, or my relationship with another person. That's understanding. That's an art. That's art understanding who we are, and that's art. So can design do this? I'm going to give you another demo here. And this one is a strange photo album software created by my grad student Juno and myself now 9 years ago. And it'll take a moment to load this up, but I can tell you about it while it does. So this is what we call, well, this is what I end up calling kind of the world's most depressing photo album software, right? Stem from the idea that, hey, we're taking a lot of photos with our phones, but it's mostly kind of a take write-only process. The reading doesn't really happen as much. We take a lot of photos and then we kind of mostly who has time to go back and organize and and actually go back and savor these moments. So we created an app where people can submit their photos taken with their mobile phones with context, with some sound, also geotagged and time tagged, and we put them into a kind of database. And this is just a few entries in the database. But really what this is, it's a metaphor for like memory. So of course the app blows it up. All these fragments are actually fragments of these photos, right? And this actually obeys Kepler's third law of planetary motion. Things will rotate faster towards the center of the spoke here. But you can call specific images into into view. Now, if you look at the time, this isn't just saying, hey, this happened like 2012. We're not saying this happened, this moment, after 8 years, 8 months, 6 days, 1 hour, 12 minutes, 33, 34, 35 seconds ago. Right? This is why this is the world's most depressing photo album. This is reminding you that this moment, well, you're never going to be as close to this moment as you are now. In fact, this is forever receding away from us, all of these moments. And isn't that what memory is? This is Dorian Gray in reverse. We grow old while these moments kind of remain, but they are forever kind of receding. And so you can go through the database of kind of these everyday images, and in a way, this is an homage to to everyday moments. Because I think most of life is not extraordinary moments. It's made of mostly ordinary moments, but these ordinary moments also, maybe they're worth our consideration, worth our reflection. And that's, I think, what this photo album is trying to say. And night can turn to day, day into night. If you zoom out far enough, but it becomes kind of a galaxy of our collective everyday moments. And this is performed as a laptop orchestra piece, but also as just a tool you can use to, this is when it converges, blow up again. It's pretty fun. It's still our memories. And yeah. So that's Converge. And it's a tool. In a way, I would offer all design is design tools. Tool, and what that means, I think there's some really interesting implications there. And what is a tool? It's a tool, something you can use for a purpose, but also something you might get better at using. Tool also implies you have some say, some agency. Like this is not the channel. This is not the thing where you're bombarded with streams of, I don't know, news stories or news feeds that you didn't quite ask for. But a tool is something you use because you choose to. Right? That's something of agency kind of encoded into the tool. And instruments are tools as well. So this is from Stanford Laptop Orchestra. It is from a smaller scale performance on our stage. This is electronic chamber music. We have a large performance in June 8th in concert hall, so that's free to open to the public. I invite all of you all to that. But if you look at the laptop orchestra, it's humans, it's laptops, and it's laptops sitting in an audio interface. There's an IKEA breakfast tray here. Sit on meditation mats and pillows, and this hemispherical speaker array keeps sound local to the instrument. And this is really us trying to pay attention to the way that instruments make sound or could make sound. Specifically, like how physical traditional acoustic instruments make sound. If I were to play like a ukulele in front of me here, the sound wouldn't naturally come from speakers surrounding us, it would come from the artifact. And this by really this articulation of this kind of medium, this changes the way you would think about making instruments. And if the instrument's different, then the music you would make with the instrument are going to be different, the way you perform it. So the seemingly maybe subtle what the aspect of the laptop orchestra actually spirals out butterflies into all kinds of new ways of thinking about music. So this is our ensemble, but also it's a research lab for thinking about how we create new instruments that combines humans and computers, and what kind of new music can we make with this. And these speakers, yes, were also from IKEA. They're salad bowls with holes drilled into them. And this is Slorp in Bing Concert Hall, just a snippet. This is one of 200 plus pieces that have been created. They're all very pleasant.
These using this metaphor is pulling a sound out of the world.
Something completely different. This is another instrument. This is the laptop accordion. Front side camera. Back up that, opening the laptop. Sound is generated on the laptop, and this is almost certainly very bad for the hinge on your screen. There you go. And now we're actually working on virtual reality and thinking about designing instruments, social interactions in VR. I'd say my personal reason for doing this is probably 90% apprehension of VR as something that could take over. And I was like, well, it's going to take over. No one's going to really be able to stop it, I don't think. So if it's going to happen, I'd rather it happen with more music than less music. So 10% pure curiosity of like what the medium can offer us. But I think we're really thinking of VR, well, it's still a medium. And so the questions, again, are it's like, what are the humanistic, artistic, social dimensions within this new medium that is different than other mediums, right? That's kind of the research questions at its core. So in a way, I think we've covered a bit of the first two. What is design? But also trying to get an idea of kind of designing things well to actually offer a kind of understanding in addition to serving a function or serving that well. So I'm going to talk now about kind of just briefly about this question of ethics and shaping technology. Now, what in the world does it mean to design ethically? Well, certainly, like, nobody in this room is spared from current spiraling narratives on ethics and technology, right? We are worried. The world is worried. And what are those narratives? Well, many of them is kind of along this line. I would call it kind of ethics as compliance. How do we do no evil? How do big tech companies like not harm us? How do the machine learning algorithms not propagate and possibly amplify our biases that we already have? Now, those, to be sure, are necessary and vital questions, important questions and difficult questions. But do no evil, I think it still falls under this compliance category. Contrast that with, I think, a different kind of way to think about ethics. Ethics, I would call this ethics as social principle, right? Like, how do we do good? Now, this, at some level, are like very different. Like, do no evil next to do good feels like a really low bar. This is Google's, of course, old motto. And I would say I'm kind of glad they stopped using it because, you know, internal consistency has not been Google's suit of late. But, you know, what does it mean to do good? That's actually kind of a very situational question. But I think there's even, for me, a better question. in terms of ethics of shaping technology. And I think that question is this: how do we want to live with our technologies? Again, we're going back to this qualitative. Much like technology should create calm, this is kind of a question in that vein. It's not like how do we do no harm. In fact, what do we say? Ethics is not a leash on technology, or at least not only a leash on technology, but the very foundation. What to build, how we build it, and how we want that thing to exist in the world. That, to me, is an ethics question, perhaps the ethics question, right? And so, in a way, I think Artful Design is advocating for a much broader definition of ethics, right? And you can map these loosely, but also, I think, productively onto kind of the philosophical schools of ethical thought, right? I mean, you can, in some ways, like do no harm is something of a utilitarian approach. Do good is possibly a deontological approach. And this question, how do you want to live our technologies, is a very virtual ethical way to think about this. How do we flourish as human beings? How do we actually build things that help us flourish, right? And so the argument in Artful Design for kind of ethics, in one sense, is that, yes, the choices we make design whole implications for our users. In all three of those different ways of looking at ethics, and are therefore tantamount to taking action ourselves. And we don't go up to strangers and punch them in the face for no reason, because we don't do that. But online, we seem to hold ourselves to different standards, right? And but also as designers, if basically what I'm saying is that if you buy this, if you buy the decisions that we have as designers of anything, that these decisions actually have implications for our users, then I guess what I'm saying is that I'm not calling for like a new ethical system for technology. I'm actually saying we should adopt and extend the moral ethical frameworks we already have individually to how we design technology. That, I think, is the manifesto, right? And if I were to just put one rule out there, it might just be the platinum. What is the platinum rule? We all heard the golden rule, right? Do unto others as you have them do unto you. What is the, how many people have heard the platinum rule? What is the platinum rule?
Treat others the way they want to.
Exactly. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them, right? And what if that is the bottom line of doing business, doing design, doing anything? In fact, this has already been said quite well by when Immanuel Kant in the second formulation of his categorical imperative. Of course, he only had one. In a way, he only needed one. Second formulation says, acts that you treat humanity, whether yourself or another person, never as a means to an end, but always as an end in itself. That is the platinum. If you're designing for someone, well, their experience and yours might be drastically different. But you're going to go out of your way to figure out what they really want. Not just what they, on the surface want, but what they really want as like a person. And this, the statement just is so very actionable. I mean, it is the categorical imperative. You could, if you chose to, apply this to every decision that's worth deciding, right? And this also just says, every person, just by virtue of being human, is accorded dignity as a human being, regardless of how successful, how rich, and not, or how whatever they are. Just by virtue of being human, you have dignity. And now, what if this is the bottom line of how we design things? I don't think, it's also kind of beautiful to me that I don't think you can get too much more specific in this because it quickly becomes situational. But I think we can apply this grid work to just about any, really any decision we might make in designing things. So the manifesto of Artful Design reads something like this: in our age of rapidly evolving technology and unyielding human restlessness and discord, design ought to be more than simply functional. It should be expressive, socially meaningful, and humanistic. Design should transcend the purely technological, encompass the human, and strive for the sublime. What is sublime design? Well, sublime design presents itself first and last as a useful thing, but nestled within that window of interaction lies the novel articulation of the thought, an idea, a reflection, an invisible truth, speaks to it, intimate yet universal, purposeful without necessity of purpose, that leaves us playful, understood, elevated. It's a transformation so subtle that it escapes our conscious grasp, that once experienced, like music, we would never want to be without again. Design should be artful. That's the manifesto. And there are many different ways to think about this. Maybe one of the golden ethos, I guess, of artful design is that you gotta look beyond the needs. Yeah, design needs to speak to needs, but as we're often taught. But we ought to also design the values that underlie these needs. What do people really want? Ocarina was not designed in taking a survey. Hey, what do you need? We're building an app. And people are like, hey, well, I think we need like a phone, like an app that you can blow into the phone and play music with, or like we need to see a globe where we can hear other people blow into the phones. No, that obviously did not happen. I think it came from values, which to computer music researchers, this actually is very entirely natural. What are the values of art? It's quite simple, actually. It's first of all, music making, does a person good, we believe. And also, whimsicality is a value. This thing is whimsical, by taking and defamiliarizing an everyday computing device, you're kind of taking it out of its kind of usual context and recontextualizing it. And also, this just maybe can be a goodly democratizing technology. So these values they're not rocket science, they're just beliefs that constitute part of who you are. And so this is all to say there has to be an artistic on the part of the designer. The results from seeing and feeling the world at large. Surveys are good too, and asking people are good too. Need finding is good. The need finding has to be an art. It can't just be an exercise. You got to really feel the pulse of the world. You can't just ask people. I would say designers are less problem solvers, more artists, philosophers, engineers, useful things that understand us. That is an engineer, a real designer. So the book then is really, I think, people ask, who's the audience for the book? I think it's for the engineer with a soul, whatever that is. And yeah, it begins in my office. Buildings and pencil bags, ocarinas and sound synthesis. We look at visual design, converge to programmability and sound design, instrument design, interface design from theremin to artificial intelligence systems with humans designed into the loop. Try to find the golden mean of a balance. There's actually a principle in the book about artificial intelligence and automation, which says, it's the only two-part principle in the book. The first one says, that which can be automated should be automated, except, part two, that which cannot be meaningfully automated should not be automated. And so, it is trying to find a golden mean between the extremes, between too much and too little. It's trying to find this balance. It's what is the right amount in the right situation? And I guess this is a very Aristotelian concept. This is kind of virtue, right? This is finding the balance that's specific to the situation. Game design, instruments, expressions, games that are weird, unconventional games. Games that this is a game about infant cancer. Is this still a game? Does that even matter? But this is made by a family that went through this ordeal. This is their story. And you get to, in some ways, live it through their eyes, through their actions. My favorite part of this game, the part that made me really reflect, are the ones where I'm actually just waiting, in the game, in the hospital hallway for the results. And I'm walking around, I'm looking at the pictures on the wall, I'm like, this is what it means to have someone, a loved one in the hospital. You're waiting in the hospital, and you're looking at you're looking at the walls, and you're trying to make sense of things. So the game, it becomes kind of this life simulator, but it gives you a tool with which to reflect on things, and things that hopefully are not happening to you. But you also realize there's something universal in all of this. We're all susceptible to life, which is just utterly, I think, undesignable. Social design. To your final chapter, it's really kind of put, where everything kind of leads is this, it's the manifesto, it's really the philosophy of artful design. What we make makes us. Half of this is Marshall McLuhan talking about how, well, when he said the medium is the message, he's not actually making equivalence there. He's actually saying the way to shape society in kind of the course of human history, the medium possibly far exceeds the message. It is not even about what you say. It's kind of what the mediums are actually available with which to say that. From the oral tradition to the literary age, from that to the printing age, to the electronic age, to whatever age we are entering now. Having mobile phones changes the way that I think society actually works and actually fosters new kinds of discourse and entirely new ways of kind of being. So that's a kind of a deterministic view. But I think artful design is also kind of paired that with as always, it's trying to do a duality. It's saying, well, maybe we are not without ages. We have some say that if we design, knowing that the things we design will come back to shape us and shape society, can we take that into account when we design? And try to complete a larger feedback loop. Right? And so, at some level, it's a hopeful ideal. And in fact, it's kind of the only choice I think we have. I think either it's this or we are subject to our own devices entirely. And the same, we actually have a say in this. So anyway, that's artful design. And from Stanford and really education point of view, as we are training, hopefully also educating human beings, our students to do whatever they're going to do. I think tomorrow's engineer must be much more than a specialist, but a kind of technological artist, moral ethical inventor, and a system designer. In higher ed, we talk about these different shaped students. There's the I-shaped student. It's like a student who has like depth in one discipline. And we're like, that's bad, because that's like really narrow. And then comes the T-shaped student. There's some depth, there's some breadth. Okay, that's better. But then we talk about the pie-shaped student. What is the pie-shaped student? Well, sometimes we think of this leg of the pie, which by the way is both a letter and a number. Very cool in this context. But this leg is maybe something like disciplinary expertise. For me, it was computer science. The right domain expertise, something you apply your discipline to. Public health, or in my case, music. What about this bar? Well, for me, that is the aesthetic lens. It's a philosophical, artistic, moral lens that gives broader meaning and context in bridging these two legs. And what if this is the kind of student that we would try to educate? What if this is the kind of person we ourselves would want to be? And for me, this is kind of, well, this makes it plain, at least for me, that engineering, art, the humanities, social sciences, these are not separate or separable pursuits. To be good at one, you got to really have this broader lens at all of this and how things fit together. And also, these are not things to put together. Humanities, engineering, art, social sciences, these are things that should have never been taken apart. I think what it needs to really educate like the complete human. And I'm doing my part such as it is. And first of all, writing this book was an attempt to put all that into one place. But also, I'm teaching this course. I taught this in the winter, and Design to Understand such as the Thinking Matters course for first-year students. We go through the nature, the craft, ethics, experience, and the future of design, loosely speaking. And this is the first time it's taught, so I kind of just, it's a hodgepodge of books. And they can begin ethics to the design of everyday things, from Frankenstein to Bruno Minari. And, if human-centered design is kind of a cognitive approach to designing things, where by the policy you set with design, you shape behavior. And you then that's a feedback from behavior back to the intentions you have for the policy. And by the way, that is all you need to have a business, to have an economy. You can change people's behavior, you can monetize that. Right? And in fact, the economy can be sustained indefinitely kind of on that alone. However, is that enough? Well, if you take Aristotelian Nicomachean ethics view, I think this one is actually getting at a kind of way of life. The notion of human flourishing is a kind of functional excellence of what it means to be human, right? And that, I argue, and I do in this class, that is, and I think this is what Artful Design arguing, is that there is a bigger feedback loop. So if policy shapes behavior, but behavior in the aggregate shapes way of life, can we close that bigger feedback loop from way of life, or the way of life that we would want, back to the intention that shapes policy? So you can close the feedback loop on behavior, but I think there's a larger feedback loop on what it means to flourish. Anyway, so that's the final project. Is a speculative design. They don't actually build it, but they have to really think hard about a manifesto or blueprint and think through kind of a thing that would want to design in a world that would want to live in. And to write a short form fictional narrative on this. And people have designed things like, hey, here's a ethical corporations for dummies. I designed an ironic book, Ethical Companies for Dummies, sarcastic and humorous ethicality test. She didn't actually write this, but this is the plan. To a small home, to an escape room based on literature. I really like this one. This is taking basically legal documents, and through AI, it's going to make it readable. But what's really awesome about this is that there's a slider you get that you can get just the right amount of jargonness. And that slider, for me, is what makes this a tool, right? If you just convert it, that's a tool too, but this is really a tool. Because you might, for one, you can look at it at different levels of jargonness and actually understand this thing at different levels. That's useful, right? To redesigning the internet kind of from in a way that we would have to this one. This is a modern society simulator. We live in interesting times, and this one is simulating kind of like just what it's like to live in our current age, with all our hopes, dreams, and fears. And I think it's kind of a depressing, but also hopeful kind of a game, right? But it's nice because games get to do things that we can't readily do because we're in the middle of it. This kind of asks you to take a step back, but to be yourself in this world. So to end, I'm going to end with this one bit from the book. And this actually happens. And Juliana, who's a colleague in philosophy, asked me at a humanities town hall 2 years ago, say, hey, good, do you think we'll ever have robot musicians? I'm like, okay. Favorite question, I think, you mean that are as good as humans? She said, yes, I think that's what I mean. And at this point, I get this question a lot for some reason. People are always like, go, what's the future of music? Go, are we going to have robot musicians? I mean, like, I don't know, or like, not know. And, but no, but philosopher asking me this made me think, well, you know what? I don't have the answers, but actually I don't even have the questions. So I said, I think we'll have true robot musicians the day we have true robot philosophers. Because if we figure out what the hell it means to have robot philosophers, then I think we'll have a lot of other questions that we could actually ask, right? And can we have robot scientists? What does it mean? Do we want them? Is it meaningful? Can we have robot designers? Right? I mean, these are questions, but I think before that, we've got to answer we got to be able to ask better questions. And I think we're not so far from being able to ask even the right questions, let alone trying to answer these. So for me, I think for Artful Design, I think it comes back to this question, how do we want to live with our technologies? In 2012, in our app, which is a social karaoke app, where you can see people sing on the globe, hear them, but also add your voice in a +1 kind of way to the chorus. A woman reached out in the wake of the earthquake and tsunami disaster in Japan with a rendition of Lean On Me, which she started. And 4,000 people joined it. That's not like 1,000 people.
We know that sorrow, God, if we are right, we know that there's always tomorrow. We are weak when you're not strong. I'll be your friend.
That's the thing about design. That would not have been possible without technology. But hopefully, if you design something well, design it right, you should never notice the technology. Thank you all very much for having me. Over, so you've got a jet. You should do that. But I'll be here with questions and discussions. If you're interested in that, I mean, that's a late stage picture of a late stage editing session with Kate. It's getting really lost in the chapter 5 and 8, which are the longest chapters. And, yeah, everyone does need an editor. Any questions? Yes.
Thank you so much for this talk. I really enjoyed it. Could you talk just a little bit more about where sort of need to make money fits in? You touched on it really briefly, but
yeah, I think sustainability is something we have to consider. Absolutely, we have to. I don't subscribe to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I think just cannot possibly capture the confusion and complexity of human needs. But there's a very broad and vague truth to it, in that there's some things that, like, if I'm running away, I'm like watching the show The Walking Dead. I'm like, wow, these people got no time to make art because they're trying to not be eaten by zombies. So I would say need for survival from zombies have to take precedence at any given moment from the need to make music, to self-actualize, which would be the top of Maslow's hierarchy. However, I would say that if all you do is trying to evade zombies, I think life becomes kind of really meaningless, right? And it's if you go a day without music, you'd probably be fine. Most of us, we'd be completely breaking down, melting down, right? Try going a year without hearing any music, playing any music. I think that next song you hear, you would give up most of life's essentials to hear. I would offer, right? So in a way, I think we do have to think about, for me, design has to take in both sides. One is, again, is the pragmatic, it's the functional, it's the sustainable, the externally valuable, the extrinsically valuable. And you have to balance that, I think, with this other side, which is an intrinsic value thing. A thing there has to be a value in and of itself. That has nothing to do with its sustainability, sustainable imperative. So I think I don't know if I can draw this here. Actually, let me go back to an earlier slide. So I think your question is really at the core here. This is actually what I was talking about. This is design, right? You have intention shaping policy, which all design, you're putting a policy out there. Policy shapes behavior. There's a feedback loop. This is all you need for economics. This is for an economy to occur that's here to change behavior. But in the aggregate, I would offer behavior changes way of life. If this feedback loop is the economics, then maybe this larger feedback loop is the eudaimonics. There's Aristotle's eudaimonia. It's a pursuit of happiness in the form of human flourishing. Right? And what if that also shaped intention? So I would say Don Norman, I think Don Norman actually goes farther than this in human-centered design, but it's often taken to mean that design is operating at this level. Right? Whereas I think design is art, from Nicomachean ethics to design as art, that's from Minari to artful design. It's saying that there's a larger loop that we ought to close. And artful design specifically is trying to say, well, you can't ignore the economics of it either. You can't just, as an artist, as long as you can sort of get by, I think it's all about the outer loop. But I think design, it can reach for the transcendent, but I think its feet can never leave the ground. So every app I designed for Spatial was was absolutely designed, like I said, to sell like hotcakes. It's got to. But I think that's got to be balanced with why you're doing this in the first place. And I don't know if that answers that, but how you balance that is also incredibly situational. Yes.
I have a question about how collaboration fits in your own work, your process, or in how you teach design to people. I noticed that the students were individual projects in the course.
I have individual, also group projects. So they're working groups 2, 3, sometimes 4. Smule was very collaborative. Then there's a whole like product team, engineering team, marketing team, and everyone working together. It's a great question. It's something that I think Artful Design doesn't address as much. It's kind of this issue of collaboration. It's really probably starting more from the individual. But for me, a lot of times, like collaboration in design is actually about finding the people who I just were like, oh, I think we naturally resonate on like our underlying why we build things the way we build things. And those are the best kind of collaborations. And I don't have any I don't offer any insights, I think, on how we can better collaborate. But I think maybe identifying like what we're about and what the other people are about usually is it's a good place to start. Yes.
I really enjoyed your talk. Thank you very much. So you mentioned when you were talking about AI design that your principle is to ask what existing systems can be improved with AI and what existing systems would be better left alone without AI intervention. And so I was curious, and I'm absolutely I imagine you get this question a lot. How do you respond to the criticism that a lot of technological enhanced music is unnecessary because we have traditional musical tools and instruments? And so how would you apply your own principle of AI intervention in traditional society to how you're using technology to intervene in traditional music?
Answer that in 2 parts. I think there are 2 sets of questions in there. One is kind of regarding AI and automation. It's not just about like figuring out when you full on do AI and when you don't, but the way in which you apply AI is very critical. For example, you can have like the legal document translator. You can have a fully automated system that just big red button gives you some output. But I think to put that slider in there is not something that we think about automatically. Putting that slider of the jargonous level of the translation is actually, that's where the balance is. So it's not a binary, like should we have it or not have it in a specific situation, but saying, well, in a situation, I think AI could help here. How can we best take advantage of what AI has to offer with what people actually want from that system, what people actually want from that system? For me, like I go from the premise, I think people at the end of the day actually want tools. Like that's my belief, right? People actually want tools that they like using and that they find useful, but also they like using. So for me, like that balance resides not only in a question of should we use AI here, but how should we use AI? And that always boils down to, well, can we redesign the system to operate in iterations and steps, where every step, it's like, really it's like the AI, the system being designed to ask you, okay, I made some progress. Am I in the right direction? And then you give the user, the human, kind of almost like a user interface to be able to feed back into the AI system. You're like, well, that's kind of what I want, but not really. Like imagining, like in a music context, you can imagine kind of an AI-assisted composition tool, as opposed to like a big red button that just like generate piece of music. Boom. I don't like it. Hit the big red button again. No, I think I like that better. Well, I can still do better. And that's such a coarse granularity of control. But a system that's like, hey, here's a measure, the next measure to the song that you're trying to create. Is that kind of what you want? You're like, yeah, we'll make it louder, but let's try a different chord. I don't know which chord. Figure it out. Okay, that sounds good. So in a way, I want to be able to apply my own aesthetic judgment into this process at a different granularity. Like that to me would be a virtuous use of AI, because it actually speaks to something I really want. I actually don't want a big red button. that just automatically generates an entire song. But I do want some help sometimes. Sometimes I don't want to think about some of the things in there, and I kind of want some help there, but there's some places I got to have the decision. So, yeah, I mean, and then to your question, criticism of like using technology for music, I can only offer that music and technology is always gone hand in hand. When humans carved, the femur bone of a bear into a flute, 35,000 years ago, they were working with music technology. And the pipe organs were through the Industrial Revolution, were the most complex, and watches and clocks. They're the like 2 or 3 most technologically complex systems we had that we made. So I also don't think there's a ceiling on like how much music or how many different kinds of instruments we can have in the world to actually make music. And not like, oh my God, there's a new way to make music. We got to like ditch some of the older ways, right? I think it's an additive thing. So, when people say, hey, what's the future of music? I'm like, there's not one. I think it's going in like a million directions all the time. And I like to think that, by and large, that is a good thing. Thank you for the question. Any other thoughts?
I appreciate that you included images of the process, the creative process here, and the picture of you in the conference room at SUP with all of the hard copies. And it made me think a little bit about the interplay of analog and digital in this work and design. And sometimes we can think of those kind of in opposition, but really it's a recursive and reflexive. But you're also incorporating audio and music, which was mind-blowing for me to think through, like what are the interplay of those elements, and maybe they're not so separate as I am thinking right now, but if you could speak a little bit to that, because you created a physical object, a book, but and it significantly borrows from and gestures to your experience with music, but it's not, the book doesn't actually play music. So how do you think about how that important dimension of your design and your thinking, your way of being is kind of reflected in this work?
That's a great question. So the book, well, first of all, the Artful Design was definitely designed as a physical page to be turned book. And so that was kind of but part of me was like, well, it's a book about design. It's really a hidden practical philosophy of designing well. I think that's kind of what it's about. And so not having the sonic and the visual, a lot of the kind of video dimension, I think is something I had to work with. But I have a website that links to like audio and video. I think that was thinking, okay, that could help. But then I did try to create the book in a way that, I'm always trying to, part of the constraint is to make this interesting on its own for what it is. Yeah. So I think for me, the jury's still out whether that part of it, to the extent to which that part of it actually worked. A lot of times I found that I didn't really need the sound, but I'm not sure that's because I know the sound so well, and with others read it, they, and sometimes I'm like, well, it's computer music, and who would want to hear that? But kidding aside, it's I definitely made it knowing that the medium didn't really, when you sit down with a book, it's not going to have sounds. I even thought about like QR codes. I'm like, no, I just want them to be in the book. And maybe they can imagine, and maybe they can, So that's my non-answer to your excellent question.
If there were a book where you could press a button and hear the sound, like the old kids' books, like if there were a way to do that, would you have done that?
Those holiday cards.
Yeah.
This cutout kind of pops up and plays music. That would be cool. I was trying to also make it like technologically, like kind of under control.
Yeah.
I do think the book is like is a technology that's going to just way outlive any of this technology. Like the book is much more likely to way outlive all of this. So that's another reason. It's like, I wanted to see if it works as a book.
Elaine can tell you something about that.
I bet you. Can. Right. Well,
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.